So I will call the meeting to order. Can we please start with the roll call?
President Abbas.
Present.
Alder Bennett.
Here.
Alder Heck.
Here.
Alder Lemmer.
Here.
Alder Wahelier.
Here.
Vice President Martin is running a little late. Alder Carter is also a little late. And Alder McKinley is a little late, but we have quorum.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion for, or before I go for approval of the minute, Stephen, can you please do the ID announcement?
All right. Welcome to our virtual meeting. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. Members of the committee, if you're able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you're able, please activate your video when you're speaking. In this meeting, panelists have the ability to mute and unmute themselves. Panelists also have the ability to add pronouns after their names if they choose. Please do not alter the current naming convention. Simply add text after your name. Please use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. Staff, please use the raise hand feature when you're asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. Staff will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the committee, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. President Ross, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Can I please have a motion for approval of the draft minutes for February 1st, 2022?
So move.
Move and Alder Lemmer, that's second. And it's moved and second. Any question, concerns on the minutes? I don't see any hand raised, so I will consider as unanimous approval. We will move next to public comments. At this time, there's no public comment for correct, Madeline. I don't see any public comment for agenda item number 1.
No, we have no registrants for agenda item number 1. The only registrant we have is for agenda item number 3, and they are for information only.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we will move to disclosure and recusal. Any member of the committee want to disclose or recuse? That's your opportunity. I do not see any hand raised. We will move forward to update items. Agenda item number 2, legislative file number 70079, Common Council Chief of Staff hiring process. Harper or Tori, would you like to give an update?
Good evening, everybody. Just an update on where we are at with the Chief of Staff process. We had 18 applicants apply through the process. We reached out through a wide variety of networks. A vast majority of applicants moved on to the supplemental essay review portion. Out of the supplemental essay review portion, we only had one candidate fail that piece. The rest of the candidates moved on. So we had 13 folks on an eligible list. And what was opted to do is to interview the top scoring 7 candidates. So the top scoring 7 individuals will move on to the interview process on Monday. I have been working with Council President Abbas to finalize interview questions and associated benchmarks, and have been working with Madeline to make arrangements for Monona Terrace that day. We'll be emailing committee members that are involved in the interview panel application materials tomorrow, and then we'll also provide the interview questions in advance as well. We'll have application materials available for alders that are listening in, extra materials printed off that day for folks. The day of the interview, how it will work is we have individuals arriving 15 minutes ahead of time to review the interview questions. Then they will be rolling into the interview itself, which will last for approximately 45 minutes. And then we're going to have a writing sample where we're asking folks to write a press release, and they'll be given 15 minutes to do that. I'll have all the press releases available for the committee at the end to review. We will have one candidate who is not able to attend in person, so I've been working to create a virtual option for this individual.
Thank you very much, Tori. Any questions? Alder Bailey.
Thanks, Tori, for sharing this update. Did you say you will be sharing the questions ahead of time?
Correct.
And what's the reason behind that?
Would you rather me not? I guess I would ask the group. Not to the candidates, are you asking?
Yes, not to the committee and to the candidates. Will they be able to have access to those questions?
The committee, I can either have it available the day of or share it in advance. It's up to you all. The candidates were sharing 15 minutes ahead of time. And that's because people process information in different ways. So it's just important to have just an option for those that need to see things in writing and just get a few minutes to process their thoughts, to give them the opportunity to do that, to help prepare them for the interview.
Okay. And I will have other people to ask questions because I have a motion to make or request to make.
Okay. Alder Heck, please go ahead.
Thank you. I would like it if folks are agreeable to that we see the questions well in advance, so that we have some time to think about them if that's possible. Also, will we have access, CCEC, will we have access to any of the materials that have come in so far about the final candidates or even the others? And will we see that in advance of the interviews?
For the final candidates, the interview panel, the committee interview panel, yes, will receive application materials for the finalist. And that will include their application, if they've submitted a cover letter with that, if they've submitted a resume with that, and it'll also include their essay responses as well.
And will it include any other materials and perhaps the rankings that have been done of those candidates so far, and because they made the first cut?
I can provide the rankings if the committee requests that.
I think it's better to have more information than less, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Heck. Alder Carter. Alder Carter, sorry, before we go to you, I see Harper hand is raised. Do you mind if you can?
No, please.
Harper,
please go to Harper.
Sure. Thank you, President Boss. I do want to caution folks that in regards to a typical hiring process, folks move past one step to another process. We like to think that folks are at the same level. I trust you all to have information and be able to use that information accordingly. But as far as the 7 or so folks that are moving on to this step, I don't know how that would impact you all knowing where someone was ranked, if you would look or expect someone to respond better at the interview stage. So I would encourage you all to just disregard looking for the information and just to evaluate folks based on the questions that you all have created and their ability to respond to those questions without having any knowledge in regards to where they were ranked previously by the subject matter experts. Just my 2 cents.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Harper. Alder Carter.
Thank you. I agree with Harper because I want everyone to be on a level playing field. But more importantly, I just want to say that even with the state, we allow applicants to have the questions 15 minutes ahead of their interview. And that is standard procedure. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Carter. Alder Lemmer.
Thank you. For the interview questions, are we going to be provided criteria for evaluating the responses from candidates? For example, are we going to have kind of guidance on making sure that they hit on certain things in their response?
Yes, we'll have benchmarks for each question to help you evaluate the candidates.
All right, super. Thank you. That's all I have right now.
Alder Bennett, I know Alder Vahila, you have a motion to make. So if you don't, I think so Alder Bennett have a question. Unless you have a question, I will let you go. Otherwise, I will go to Alder Bennett. Okay, Alder Bennett, please go ahead.
Cool. I have a question. Will we get to know the names of the candidates before the interview? Yes. Yeah. Okay, cool. And also, just logistically wise, how will we be ranking them? Will we be ranking it individually, or will we have to come to a consensus as a group?
So if Harper, you want to give an answer, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm happy to give that answer. Okay, yeah. So Alder Bennett, good question. Each candidate, we're gonna rank them individually basis of their skill set and the criteria we set with the questions. And then when all the 7 candidates, we rank them. And after then, as Tori mentioned, they will give us the press release information, the writing samples. We will review that. And then we will see which candidates came where. And then we do deliberation and see how, as a committee, we think who could be the best fit. Regardless of their scores, we could always discuss, but those scores will be shared with us, who got the maximum, who got the second, third, or fourth, whatever. And also, we will also evaluate the writing sample too. I hope I answer your question.
Okay, so will that all happen on the 28th?
Yes.
Okay.
Same date.
Same date. Okay. What will happen? What's the process after the 28th?
Say again, come again.
What's the process after the 28th?
After 28 is this, we will make a motion as a committee. And the email I send to CCEC member, the process is once we decide which is the top candidate, we will make a motion to recommend A, B, or C person. And then we will do a rank choice. So this is our number 1. This is if that person didn't accept that offer, that will be the number 2. And if number 2 didn't accept the offer, that will be number 3. So out of 7 people, we will make our best choice, second best, and third best, and we will recommend the best choice to Common Council for approval.
Oh, okay. So at the end of it, Common Council members will be able to give that are not on CCEC will be able to give their input as to who to hire, correct?
So CCC will make a recommendation as a hiring committee to Common Council. Common Council is a body who have to approve or disapprove the position. So it will come on an agenda item for approval.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Alder Heck.
Thanks for allowing me to ask a second question. I'm wondering when we have our final deliberation at CCEC, that entire process is a closed session, and I'm wondering who will be in the room when we do have that discussion.
So all the alders are welcome. The deliberation is for all Common Council alder. I believe HR will be there, City Attorney will be also there, and Madeline will be there because she's doing the minutes of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. That's my
Tori,
question.
go ahead. There might be, she wants to add something else.
I won't be there during the deliberation piece. I'll be there during the interview piece to record the interview and just to interject if some question kind of crosses legal boundaries. But when it comes to deliberation, I step out and let you all make that decision and then come back in the end and talk to you about if you have a final candidate or candidates.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Alder Haley, do you have, you have a motion to make?
Yes, please.
Okay. Can I go to Alder Bennett? Perhaps you
Sure.
have another question. Alder Bennett, go ahead.
Sorry, just real quick, just clarifying, because I recall what we saw at the PCLD hiring process. I was just wondering, have all the candidates already gone through a thorough background check and all of that, or will that happen later?
Dory Harper, please go ahead.
Sure. So no, they have not. It wouldn't be appropriate to necessarily go through a criminal background check or at this stage of the process. Usually when you're to the point where you're ready to put the conditional offer, that's when it'd be appropriate to do the background check. What we're really trying to do is align this process with in mind the ban-the-box procedures in which you're not, running checks on folks, getting information, and then you have those influences before you're ready to make a decision, so that if there is anything that pops up, candidates, applicants will have an opportunity to dispute information, make sure that it's good information that we're using to evaluate them.
Okay, and sorry. Go
And
ahead.
just to add to, with this process for the end, it's not only the criminal background check. We do thorough Google searches of all the finalists. So that's being worked on and will be ready when we get to more final steps.
As well as following up with folks' references.
Okay, cool. And then also, I guess all the questions are generalized, but during the process, will we as interviewers have an opportunity to maybe ask follow-up questions and things like that?
That's a great question. Yes, you can ask follow-up questions. The big key to that is to ask similar follow-up questions of all the candidates if you ask it of one candidate. For instance, let's say you ask a question on budget experience and want to know somebody's specific role in that because they didn't really specify that. You can ask that as a follow-up question, but make sure if the next candidate, if they don't specify their involvement in that you ask the same question.
Okay, sweet. And on the note of questions, I know that we're going to get them all ahead of time. I'm sure you all are doing a great job with creating the questions, but if there's a time where someone on CCEC might want to offer to alter or change a question, word it differently, is that okay, or should we just move forward with the questions that you're already making?
I think we should move forward with the questions that are vetted. We'll have a very little time in the beginning to kind of go over things before the interview process starts. For the benchmarks, for all our benchmarks, we do offer an option for what's called an other related response, because sometimes folks say really great things that we didn't benchmark for. So we want to make sure that we consider that in our process.
Okay, I see Alder Bennett muted herself. Are you done, Alder Bennett?
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Alder Carter, if this is a question.
This is a question, and I think I already know the answer, but it's been my experience when we went through this the last time is that we each will be assigned a question so that we are asking the same question to all the candidates. And I will just caution that if you do decide to ask a follow-up question, I would write it down so that you are consistent with each applicant with your follow-up question. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder Carter. Alder Vahila, I saw you just shake your hand.
Yes. Before I make the motion, I would like to ask Herbert or Tori, what's the repercussion of having or delaying having those questions? For example, if the interview was on Monday, delaying to have those questions accessed as much as possible. What's the state or the city's rule in having those questions ahead of time?
In regard for the applicants or for panel members?
For the panelists.
Well, I'm moving forward with the assumption, expectation that there's trust within this group, and that as far as the members, the bodies of council, that you wouldn't do anything to compromise the integrity of this recruitment. So when that information is shared with you, I assume that it wouldn't be shared outside of the group. And that would be the only concern that I would have in regards to how soon. I'm not sure exactly where Tori and Alder Boss are in regards to finalizing those questions, but I wouldn't have an issue with those questions being as shared as soon as possible, just so you all have an idea. Additionally, I would like you all to have access to the applicants and their responses to the supplemental questions as soon as possible, so that you have an opportunity to review that information as well. The only concern that I would possibly have is, again, the integrity of this process, and I have no reason to question the integrity of any of the members of this body. But other than that, as soon as everything is finalized, I think it should be made available for you all. And as far as the applicants, again, that 15 minutes is just really to calm some folks down, give them opportunity to process the questions, start thinking about those. Again, we want to know what they know. We want to get the best information we can from them. It's not really so much that we're trying to get them in a I got you state of mind. It's just really trying to collect the information that we need so that you can properly evaluate folks.
Okay.
And I saw Attorney has raised his hand up. Alder Hiller, do you mind getting his opinion as well? Attorney Haas, go ahead.
Thanks. Just quickly on that point, just so you're aware, there is an ordinance. I wasn't aware of this when I applied for my job, but there's an ordinance prohibiting applicants from contacting anybody involved in the hiring process. And if they do, they're disqualified. So alders similarly, of course, should not be reaching out to applicants. And if an applicant contacts you, you should just tell them that you're not allowed to speak with them if they want to be part of the applicant pool.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, you can redirect them to me. Sometimes applicants want to send thank you letters and things like that, and they get confused with who they should send that to. You can always redirect that to me, and then I'll make sure that information gets passed along.
So thank you. With that, does that mean before the interview process or after the interview process? Attorney has for applicant contacting us.
All the way up to the council's decision.
From the 28th all the way to the decision making.
Until the council makes the decision, right?
Can you come again? From when to when?
From now until the council makes the hiring decision.
Okay. Thank you.
Alder Hiller, do you have a follow-up question?
No.
No. I see Harper hand raised. Alder Heck, I will come to you in a second. Let's hear from the Harper. Go ahead.
Thank you. In regards to that information, as far as the code of ethics and specifically with applicants reaching out to city folks who are in decision-making roles who may have access to additional information, that information was just brought to my attention recently as well. You all being in these positions, I wouldn't be surprised if candidates had reached out to you. And if I'm looking at the language in that ordinance on face value, those folks would potentially be eliminated. I actually think that that's language that should be revisited. From a city standpoint, if folks have an interest in a position, we encourage them to reach out and ask questions. But what we also encourage or expect is that folks who are in decision-making process or in positions where they can make decisions, that they wouldn't share any information that would potentially compromise the integrity of the process. So if right now, if you're looking at that language, you think, John Smith actually reached out to me and asked questions, where do I stand? I think I feel pretty good in saying that as long as you didn't share any information that would compromise the integrity of this process, specifically, shortly you all will have access to the questions and benchmarks, different things along those lines. What we usually ask folks if they're participating in hiring process is that if you know someone well enough that you feel you can't be objective in evaluating their materials, to remove yourself from the process. And that's usually how we respond to that. But again, I appreciate you bringing it up, Attorney Haas. But if you look at that language at its face value, I definitely think this group may want to take a look at that because I think it's setting folks up for failure.
I agree.
Thank you, Harper. Alder Heck.
Thank you. First, I wanted to thank Human Resources for kind of herding these cats, because some of us have done hiring before, but not in this context. So I appreciate your patience. And if when maybe I'd suggest when Tori or Harper, whoever emails us with all this information, include what Harper was just referring to and all that stuff, so it's in one place and we can. Maybe you thought of that. Sorry, but it would be helpful. One quick question for Tori. You mentioned one candidate might be in a virtual context. Would that need to occur on Monday during the hours at which we're slated to be doing the interviewing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And thanks. And then one last question. I assume that the background check and higher offer of employment doesn't come until after Common Council makes a decision. Is that correct?
So what will be unique to this process is there'll be a couple decisions that council will be making. So ultimately, you all will be charged with the confirmation of the decision that CCC makes. But it looks like there's a built-in stage where you all collectively will be coming to some type of decision in regards to who that offer is going to. So the background. So as soon as it's to the point where you've identified the applicant that you would like to see in this role, at that point, it would be appropriate to offer a conditional offer of employment. And then that's when we would start the background check.
So that's before Common Council has endorsed what CCEC is recommending?
That's before the confirmation. Once that confirmation happens, that person has been selected.
That sounds unique.
I think maybe you're not understanding which part sounds unique.
That a conditional offer of employment would be offered before Common Council weighs in?
For the confirmation, so I'm under the impression that you all are going to weigh in immediately. So we're going to have interviews on Monday, CCEC, they're going to make a recommendation to council. I don't know if this is going, it sounds like it very well may be in a closed session. Whoever was available for those interviews will be a part of that discussion. And at that point, you all are making a decision. Is that what you're thinking?
You mean at Common Council? We'll be in at Common Council when it gets ratified, or the CCEC's choice is ratified, I guess I'm asking about. A conditional offer of employment will go out after CCEC ranks the candidates? Or
CCEC, I believe that everyone will be a part of that decision. And Alder Boss, President Boss, if you can clarify how you want folks to.
Yeah. So there will be a motion to recommend the person. That's mean HR can, that recommendation, let's say we pick person A, the HR will do all the background check, everything before it come to Common Council for approval. And if Alder Foster ordinance got approved and it goes closed session, then we will discuss that person in a closed session.
So the offer won't be made until after the Common Council meeting? The
final offer won't be there, but conditional offer will be made, because then HR can do a background check. Without that, I'm not sure HR can do background check. So we will say this is our person, which we think so is qualified, then HR can do all the background comprehensive, and then the final person will be in a closed session if that ordinance passes, and then we will discuss.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alder Heck. Alder Bennett.
Hi, thanks for letting us ask 1 million questions. But just anticipating a question that may come from constituents, what is the public engagement process going to look like for this hiring? Will they be able to give input at council, or will we, I just was wondering, how is that going to look like?
So Attorney Hess, you can talk about the closed session because you've been through PCOB. I'm happy to address that question, but perhaps if you could speak to closed session, that would be great.
Sure. Well, the public, of course, would not be in the closed session. It would be, the ultimate decision would be on the council agenda. And so the council could weigh in just as part of the council meeting, but I'm not aware of any other plans to solicit community input for this type of position.
Alder Bennett, do you have a follow-up question?
No, that makes sense. I was just asking the chat to make sure. But thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much. Alder Carter? You're muted.
Thank you. Let me just remind the group, as someone who has gone through this before, that any of our colleagues, when I say colleagues, Common Council members, can attend the interview. Let me repeat that. They can attend the interview and hear the applicants and hear the questions that we're providing the applicants. At the end, as we did previously, we decide as CCEC who we are going to provide a conditional offer. At the Common Council, we would approve that person. I will tell you how embarrassing it would be if we approve the person to be hired and then HR does a background check. How embarrassing. Now, if you want to go down that road, so be it. But that is a very slippery slope that you're going down, especially when it is open to anyone who wants to stay a whole day with us to listen to everything that is going on with the applicants and with the interview. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Carter. I see Alder Foster is next in line, but let me give Harper an opportunity. Harper, do you want to?
Yes, thank you. Really what we're trying to do, we're trying to align it with our ban-the-box procedures. We don't want a situation, I think what some folks may want is right now you have 7 finalists, and I think some folks may think it's appropriate to just start running background checks on everyone, just so you know that everyone is in good standing and appropriate for, to be selected. But in regards to ban-the-box, you have situations and if there's something, if it's criminal or something in someone's background, we really want to make sure that it's directly related to the position or the task that we're going to ask of this person. So to align our processes with and these are, policies that have come from this body in regards to how we're going to treat applicants. We want to make sure that we're not doing those type of backgrounds prematurely because we don't want folks to necessarily be influenced by any information that may not actually be appropriate to give consideration to. So once we're to the point where we're ready to make that conditional offer of employment, at that point, that is when it's appropriate to start doing some of that background checks. And if there is anything that pops up, applicants should have an opportunity to respond. There are situations in which, we may have numerous Mike Haas's out there, and some information may come up that folks are turned off by. Sorry, Mike, I like picking on Mike. Mike's a good guy. He can take it. But then we can reach out to Mike and say, hey, and in 2016, you were here, you've done this. And Mike, in 2016, I was actually living in Denver. And it's just different things like that. And those things do actually happen more often than folks may know of. So again, we're trying to align our processes with the ban-the-box, which is how we approach all city positions.
Thanks, Harper. Alder Foster.
Thank you. And yeah, I don't think I have any questions around the timing for the background check, but I guess it's unclear to me the intent, President Abbas, around the offer. So are you saying that an offer would go out prior to Common Council reviewing it, even if the ordinance change is passed the day after the interviews? You're saying your intent is to instead extend an offer to someone without having the council, or maybe I misunderstood it.
No, it's not an offer, it's a conditional offer. And the condition is approval of the Common Council as per the ordinance is necessarily for approval. So that candidate is conditional offer recommendation from CCEC that this is the candidate as a hiring committee we recommended as a conditional approval, and then Common Council is a final body who will approve that. So that will give HR an opportunity, whoever that final is, to do all the background check and everything done before it comes to Common Council. just like the process, I don't know if you were at PC, some of you might have, I was in a closed session, PCOB did the similar process. They provide conditional approval, depend on the background check and the council approval. But the conditional approval, the condition was to do a background check and the common council approval, but the background check, somehow there were concerns around it. So it come back to PCOB. So I hope that makes sense.
I mean, I guess I'm not sure what the conditional offer is. I guess I'm also not sure if that's public or if that's kept confidential. But I think that one of the big differences that CCEC is not they nominate someone. They don't actually select someone in our current ordinances, and where PCOB is the body that actually appoints. That's Common Council in the current ordinance. So I guess I don't understand. And certainly in the proposed ordinance, that again would be, we'll know where the council stands on that on March 1st. That clarifies that there is not an offer until the Common Council has made that selection. So you're saying that you're instead gonna push an offer forward ahead of the council making that decision.
I mean, you can take as a word offer, recommendation. The bottom line is council is the final body. I think so. That's what I'm trying to say is the council have to approve it, regardless it's the ordinance approve or not approve, council have to approve that person. So that person after the hiring committee will be our recommendation, as this is the person we think so is a good fit. So the HR can do all the background check, and through a resolution it will come. I still have to talk to Attorney Hess, probably a resolution too.
So you would publicize that name, put it out there before Common Council has met in closed session if the new ordinance passes. So you would basically trying to avoid having that ordinance apply.
No, I'm not trying to avoid anything. That ordinance is not here yet. I don't think so. That question is very...
Well, the interviews are on the 28th. This item is being introduced tonight, and it will be decided on Tuesday, on the day after the interviews. So we'll know at that time whether the council believes it should apply or not. And I just want to understand, if you're saying regardless of that decision, your intent is to extend an offer to a candidate regardless of whether the council approves the ordinance change or not.
As I mentioned, Alder Foster, it will be a conditional approval, a recommendation to council for whoever that candidate is. And my intent is it should be unanimous from CCEC. And when we come to the council, if it's have to go in closed session, it will go in a closed session. It will depend how your ordinance will move forward. That ordinance is not adopted, so I don't feel I really have to talk about that process yet, but that's what the process is right now.
But you're saying you're not going to wait until after that decision is made, that you are potentially going to make an offer essentially the same day that the interviews happen?
We're going to decide the finalist candidate at the same day, who's the final, which we as a CCC thinks is a good fit. And provide a recommendation to council.
That part I understand, but then you're also saying you're going to extend a conditional offer to that candidate also at the same time?
Yeah, that's a recommendation from us. Like, this is the conditional, and condition is council have to approve it because that's the final approving body.
Can I interrupt?
Alder Carter, go ahead.
Let me just say a couple things here. First of all, I find it insulting to be equated or, excuse me for 2 seconds. Sorry, I had to yell at my dog. To be, let me just say this, because I'm trying to find respectable words to say, and I'm struggling. The only way a candidate's name is going to be made public is if my colleagues decide to leak the candidate's name. And I hope that my colleagues would not do that. Let me say that again. I hope that my colleagues would not do that. This conditional offer was done before. It's nothing new. I understand, Alder Foster, that you have an ordinance coming out, but let's not play Twister at this moment. Thank you.
Alder Haley, you're muted.
Yes, my question is, and I'm struggling with good words, is we have 8 bodies who are spending full day interviewing these candidates. We're spending full day to interview these candidates. And I want perhaps Attorney Haas or someone else answer this question is, what's our responsibility? What are we charged with? Are we just charged with just taking the interview questions and then moving on? Or are we a body? Because this process has been taken from the HR, from subcommittees who really diligently did the work. And this is in third phase, which is Common Council Executive Committee, who are taking their time out of their busy schedule to be there full day to interview this. And to just wait for an ordinance that we don't know if it's going to pass or not, I think it's just a mute. So I just would like to get a clear expectation as what's my role. Because if my role is just nothing, then I don't have to be there.
Alder Haley, thank you very much. Harper, go ahead.
Sure, thank you. So I'm looking at Tori's face and I see how nervous she is right now, because the way that it's set up is that Tori is going to take direction from the council president through CCEC. I struggle because this process, it's not a civil service position. There is flexibility, but a process was outlined at the beginning. Tori has been working with the council president, CCEC, and I think it's important the same way that members of CCEC are struggling to figure out what exactly their role is. Tori is going to want to know what that role is so that she's moving forward in a way and she can do this with confidence. I don't expect 20 people to agree on everything, but I do expect that you all will have some level of trust in one another. And I don't know if I'd like to say, Attorney Haas, you can weigh in. I don't know if it's more appropriate for folks to break out, if there needs to be another meeting, but it's going to be very difficult to move forward if folks aren't at least in agreement in regards to what is to be expected of them. And we're less than a week away. So whatever decisions you all make, we're good with that and we'll support it, but we just need you all to make those decisions. I just don't want to put Tori in a position where she's there, she's showing up and she's not sure what to do with information. So Attorney Haas, do you want to weigh in regards to who has the call or how this should play out if there needs to be a pause? I really want to eliminate.
I can speak to that, and Attorney Haas just chime in. I was trying to avoid to say anything because that ordinance is still not in front of us, but as a council president, this council elect me as a council president, and I try to collaborate with this council. There was a president work group on chief of staff job description. A lot of this process, if there was a problem with the process, that could be addressed there. And that group could have provided a recommendation. There was no recommendation. I look into the process. It's been over 18 months, 19 months. The council deeply struggled with not having a chief of staff position. And because of, however you say, difference of opinion, political opinion or other opinions, however you phrase it, the council deeply struggle with not having chief of staff. And council, it hurt council overall. And not to go into too much detail into that, I'm happy to go at some other time. So that process was, there was a, when we started the process, I gave a presentation in January. I provide that this is going to be the process look like as a council president and represent CCEC. My intent was we will be the hiring body as per the ordinance. We will provide a recommendation, which is a conditional approval. It's not a final approval. Council is the body who have to thumbs up or thumbs down, and the council can make a final decision. Now this ordinance just came, and I just don't feel appropriate to talk about that ordinance, as that ordinance is not an ordinance of City of Madison yet, not as per today. So once it's adopted, then we can discuss about legality of this ordinance. As per the process, I want to make it very clear for CCEC member, we are all spending our time for civil service for the community. Try with the full integrity and honesty, try to find the best candidate. And this process is just like a similar process. What CCEC, last CCEC did, they also did a conditional approval to Kwesi. Background was done, and that Kwesi came to Common Council for approval up and down. So that's Alder Vihele, coming to your question. I appreciate you asking. Your role is key, and all CCC member roles are extremely key to move this council forward. And we're going to provide a recommendation, a motion for conditional approval with the condition of council will approve it. And when we go council, if it's closed session, it's closed session, it's open. I'm not sure what will happen then, but that's the intent of it. I hope I answered some of your question. I saw Attorney Haas, do you want to add something to it? I saw you muted. I'm sorry, I didn't give you no.
I don't need to unless there's any questions.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Alder Vihele, if you have any other question.
Yes, so from what I'm understanding now is we as the body, 8 of us, we'll take the interview, we'll select the candidates that we think suitable for this position. We make recommendation, and then it will go to the Common Council. If that ordinance is passed or resolution is passed, then we will have deliberation behind closed session. Correct?
Correct. Attorney Haas? Again, this ordinance is...
yes, and I, to be honest, I don't feel we should waste time talking about the ordinance. It's not there yet. It's not an ordinance, and we have other agenda to move along. So let's move along with other agenda, because it's already creating some anxiety here. You know, we are a responsible body. We are policymakers. We have to remove our personal from the policy that we're making. So let's just move on. The HR did a tremendous work. There are other committees who did great work, and preferably, you know, let's move on and do this work. And, you know, it's just unbelievable.
Okay, thanks, Alder Vihele. Alder McKinney. And also, Alder McKinney, before you start, I just want to remind there's already 3 other agenda items waiting, and it's 5:18 p.m. So go ahead, Alder McKinney.
Okay, thank you for that reminding. So in that respect, I'm just going to cut to number 4, the item that I need to put forward. I am rejecting this Hail Mary pass at the very end, and that's what I'm calling this ordinance, is a Hail Mary pass. The process, and Harper said it in the beginning, it is in the integrity of the process, and everyone can, any alder can attend that interview process. And since we have this structure in place, it concerns me that this Hail Mary pass is before us when there has been months and months and months of ordinance work put into getting us to this process. And I think that the process has moved along. We've used it before. If you want to change it in the future, that's fine. But this is a Hail Mary pass, and please let us move on so that we can put a chief of staff in that office so that we can effectively do our business and process our work.
Thanks, Alder McKinney. Alder Foster, go ahead.
Thank you. And I do not want to, and we do not need to debate the proposed ordinance. That'll be back at the next CCEC meeting. The The point is that in our current ordinances, it says the Common Council staff shall be appointed by the Common Council after nomination by the Common Council Executive Committee. That's all we have to work with. So the question of when an offer goes out is not defined in ordinance. It's not, there is really no good analog for how this happens anywhere else. The appointment authority of the Common Council is not the same as the confirmation authority of the council. So for any other agency head, the mayor has appointment authority. The mayor makes that appointment before they're offering the job. And then when it comes to the Common Council, that's for us to simply confirm. It's a very different thing. And so the question that I've asked is, I think it would be a big mistake to offer someone a position before the Common Council has weighed in on that appointment. And that's why I raised the question. And it's not, it's simply and literally because it is not explicit in our ordinances right now. And it would make, and that's what the new ordinance is meant to do, is to clarify that. And so I think it would be very prudent to wait one day from the end of the interviews to know what the Common Council recommends for clarification. And if it does, then go with the new process. And if it says no, do whatever you want.
Thanks, Alder Foster. Attorney Hess, can you please explain the process which I mentioned about precondition or recommendation? Council is a final body. It's a precondition. It's not a final conditional, final approval. Is it illegal? What Alder Foster is saying, I just want to make sure legally where we stand. Can CCEC my understanding under the ordinance is we could do recommend or preconditional. So HR can run the background and then present a candidate. And if there's some problem with the background or something that doesn't need to go to Common Council, we could sort it out. Would you speak to that on legal ground?
Sure. As Alder Foster said, the ordinance only says nomination by CCC and appointment authority in the council. So it's not spelled out clearly. To me, nomination could mean making a conditional offer, because then by the time it gets to the council, you'll have the background check done, and you will know if the terms of I assume the terms of the contract might be discussed with the applicant at that time as well. So the council would know if you have a candidate teed up to accept the position. It could also mean, frankly, that that there is no offer made until the council votes. In that case, I think there are pluses and minuses to both. In that case, you have a public vote of the council, and then after that, you have a background check. And what happens if that background check comes back with some issues? So in this, as President Boss mentioned, with CCEC making a conditional offer, that could be taken care of ahead of time. And if there's an issue, then it could come back to CCEC to determine if that is substantially related to the position. So I agree it's not clear in the ordinance. I don't think there's anything illegal about the process of CCEC making a choice and making a conditional offer. There's nothing illegal about doing it the other way either. So somebody's got to make the call. And I wasn't involved in the earlier discussion, so I don't know if this body, or adopted a process, or if we're just trying to sort that out now.
Thank you, Attorney Hess. That's something as a council president, my understanding was precondition, according to this ordinance, what you mentioned is what we are trying to do. So everything is ironed out before it go to Common Council. And it's not in a public knowledge. We could talk to candidate, HR can do everything. If there's a question on integrity of CCEC, or the CCEC is not capable enough to make those decisions, then this CCEC can decide that, or council can decide however direction they want to go. But anyhow, I will move forward to next to Alder Bennett, where the time is getting 5:24, so I'm going to make sure you have an opportunity to give us update Attorney has on next agenda item too. So Alder Bennett, go ahead, please.
Thank you. And I know this is has been a long discussion, but it's an important one because this is the person that's going to be helping us on council and be working with us. So I don't want to rush this conversation and then go into the interview and then everyone is still up in air, has a bunch of questions about what's going on. So I appreciate that we have the time to ask these questions. I have to say that I agree with what Alder Foster is saying. And specifically in terms of like, and Alder mentioned before, embarrassment. I can't imagine how embarrassing it would be to offer a candidate this position just to find out the rest of council doesn't agree and they want to offer the position to someone else. That's what I call embarrassment for us and for the candidate. So, and at the end of the day, I get what my colleague is saying, like, what is our position on this if council makes the ultimate decision? But at the end of the day, CCEC does not represent the entire council. CCEC is our job to give a recommendation, and then the council can all have their own opportunity to decide who we all as a council want to be our chief of staff's position, because this person is going to be helping all 20 of us, not the 7 people that are on CCEC. So I ask the imperative to just hold off.
Alder Bennett, we can't hear you.
Looks like we may have lost her.
Okay, we'll come back to Alder Bennett again. Alder Haley, go ahead.
I just want to say one thing. There was a committee that was charged with hiring of the chief of staff. We took almost 4 months.
Yes.
4 months.
Alder
and
Bennett,
we,
sorry, excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry, we lost you for a second. I move forward to Alder Haley. We can get back to you in a moment. Go ahead, Alder Haley.
So everything has a process, and the process has been defined for us. And there's a committee that was charged with hiring the chief of staff. There was a deliberation, there was a process, there was questions, there was job descriptions, there's all this type. Alder Foster was part of that. And he was also part of the defining the job description. There was ample of time, if there was an integrity of the process, to change and introduce new ordinance. It's almost 4 months ago. And the thing is, if we don't want chief of staff, and this is just another form of just creating, upheaval and, problem in this, body, we have 20 alders. And CCEC is an executive body that was really charged to hire and recommend chief of staff. President Abbas came in January, lay out the process, the HR, the selection committee, all that. At that time, we have enough time to say, no, we don't want the CCEC to make the decision. We want the larger body to make the decision. That was then. We should have had that conversation then. Now it's just 1 week, less than a week before the adopting or hiring CCEC. And I think, when we say that it's embarrassment, it's an embarrassment to undermine the process of the HR, the process of those selection committee that have taken, and all of a sudden to put weight on the big party, the 20 other alders. Like others said, or President Abbas said, if we want to really be part of the process, we can be there and see how the candidates are performing questions. We can be there, see the candidates. We can be there to see the questions. We can be there and be part of the process. But it's just because of just some kind of disruptive and distraction from this body, it's embarrassment. And that's all I can see. And if we cannot be trusted and be empowered to do the decision, then we shouldn't be wasting our, 1 day process to be there. We have other things to worry about. But if we are not respected or empowered to hire the chief of staff, then we shouldn't be there. So if you talk about embarrassment, this is embarrassment.
Thanks, Alder Haley. Alder
Excuse me.
Bennett? Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
You got drop off. Yep.
I lost my connection. Yes. Sorry. So to resume from where I was going, I get what you're saying, that there was time, but we are where we are now. And we have 9 alders that are supporting this ordinance change. That's to say a lot to what this process is now. Sure, maybe it should have been changed before, but it didn't. Sucks to suck. We got to deal with what we got now. And what we got now is there are 20 alders. 9 of us agree that at the end of the day, the council should be making the ultimate decision, not the 7 of us. And I think that any of us that weren't on CCEC, that wouldn't have the opportunity to make that final decision before an offer was set would be upset about that too. With that being said, for the purposes of this hiring process, and given that this ordinance change would take place after the interviews, I would like to make a motion that we adopt the language for this hiring, the language outlined in Legislar 69990 for the purposes of this chief of staff hiring process moving forward.
So Alder Bennett, can you repeat your motion?
Yes, I would like to move the motion that for the purposes of this hiring process that we will be completing for the chief of staff position, that we adopt the language outlined in the aforementioned ordinance, Legislar number 69990, moving forward.
Is there any second? I do not see any. Go ahead, Alder Heck, that second.
I have a
question.
I'll second it for the purposes of discussion. I have questions.
Me too. I also have questions too, but go ahead, Alder Heck.
Yes, I just want to ask Attorney Haas if this motion is permissible, given that this item isn't even on our agenda.
Yep.
Can you explain, Attorney Haas, the...
Alder Haley, the Alder Heck just asked question. Could you please wait? Yep.
Well, the agenda item says update item, Common Council Chief of Staff hiring process. So I think that's broad enough to allow this motion to be considered.
And if this motion would pass, what would be the implication of that?
Well, as I understand it, it's really attempting to direct this committee, it's a good question, to be honest, because normally this, you would make recommendations to the council, but it's not, this is not a resolution or an ordinance. If CCEC says, if the motion is to have that language, I just don't know. We have to look at it whether that would be binding on the council, because to the extent that this committee decides not to make a recommendation to council, it can do that. But then I don't think this committee can bind the council for additional steps without the council voting on it. So I guess that would be my initial reaction. You can make a motion as to what this committee would do, and it's part of the process, but not bind the council without the council's vote.
So you're saying that if we were to approve this motion, that it would be kind of an internal CCEC decision that's not really related to our next week's likely discussion of actually recommending it to council or not.
Yeah, correct. For instance, the issue about should the council meet in open or closed session, I don't think this motion can bind the council. I think that would have to be done through the ordinance.
So it's effectively an internal CCEC matter. And at our next CCE meeting, this actual item as it relates to Common Council will be considered by CCEC.
Yes.
Tori had her hand up.
Thank you.
Thank Alder Heck. Tori, go ahead.
I just wondered with the motion on the table, I believe I read at one point there was a motion that part of the resolution, and correct me if this has changed, might be to remove the supplemental review process. Would the motion currently on the table impact steps that have already completed that have gotten us to this point?
So I think that's a good point. I mean, I don't have all the language of the proposed ordinance, but I don't think you can undo what's been done in this process already. Candidates have relied on that, and that's part of the process. Unless the council is going to say, we're going to start over. So there might have to be a little bit more nuance in Alder Bennett's motion about exactly what pieces of that proposed ordinance should apply.
Would it be easier if
Alder Bennett, you have to wait
sorry.
for your turn. We're in a question answer session. I appreciate.
Okay.
Thank you. Alder Carter, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted you to know that Tori had her hand up.
All right, we covered that.
Yeah.
Alder Furman and then Alder Bennett.
Thank you, Council President. I am supporting the new ordinance, but I do think the CCEC deciding to adopt that process going forward ends in makes it clear that this is a process that CCEC is looking to have followed, because it sounds like the President Abbas is waiting to find out what's going to happen with the ordinance before he decides whether or not he would follow that redefined process. I think it's clear. The current ordinance is clear that the actual appointment of the candidate happens by the Common Council. I think it's in everybody's best interest for this to be a unanimous vote or close to unanimous vote as possible, whoever the candidate is. And I think it would be incredibly embarrassing to the Common Council and the candidate if we're having fights about a candidate in open session and we don't have a candidate that has unanimous support. I think that's a horrible, horrible way for a candidate to start. I struggle to see that anybody comes out as a loser if we have discussions behind closed doors about which candidate's the right candidate for council. And I really applaud Alder Foster for putting together this change, because I think it does a really good job of giving the body that gets to appoint this position the ability to do so, and do so in a way that's not embarrassing and clear of the council's intent. So I'm hopeful that CCEC does adopt this process going forward immediately. I think it's a pretty good chance this ordinance passes, but regardless, this is a process intended to provide, I think, a great deal of fairness and expectation that we won't be embarrassing people, frankly. So thank you.
Thanks, Alder Foster. Alder Bennett, go ahead. Question for the staff.
Thank you. This isn't a question, but my apologies for interjecting. I guess I would like to clarify, and maybe this is an amendment to my motion. Basically, what I want to do is make sure that, like what Alder Furman was just saying, Alder Foster was saying before, and what I said before, is that we extend the offer after review by Common Council. So what I would like to move is that a conditional offer isn't extended until after review by the Common Council. So I hope that's permissible.
So you're changing your previous motion and you're
Yes.
taking that motion back.
Right.
That's okay with Alder Heck because you seconded. Perfect. And your new motion is the Common Council Executive Committee should not do pre-conditional approval. They just nominate a person and send to council.
Exactly. We should do that anyways. That makes sense. But yeah, so conditional offer isn't extended until review by Common Council. And I'm doing that just so that we don't fall into whatever binding, non-binding issues that Attorney Haas just mentioned.
Alder Bennett, let's get a second and then you can comment on it, okay?
Okay.
Is there a second to that motion? That's second. Now, Alder Bennett, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak on that motion? So I will say a couple of things. I understand the thing which I really feel is we look into this process. We've been through this whole, chief of staff job description. At January, I came in front of you. I discussed as a committee, as a CCEC. I told you guys this is a process. We got these panelists. This is February 28th, or in February, we're going to have a final interview. We'll provide recommendation. And my understanding of recommendation is, so we do due diligence and we do not create so much workload for Common Council. We as a committee is a hiring committee. It's our role to provide a recommendation. I never had that feeling. We as a committee, I'm just so, frustrated, or I will say surprised. Like there's a lack of trust among each other. That's how I see this. Like whatever the CCEC is presenting, we are not sure we're going to fight it, and the fight is bad. And I agree with Alder Feldman. I don't want to fight. The email I sent to the members, it was clearly says my intent is as CCEC to have a unanimous vote. A unanimous vote again. And now what I am hearing is whatever the common CCEC is providing recommendation, they should not. I personally think so. We should just pack the bag, go home, and let the Common Council do the whole process. And start the interview for whole Common Council. How about that? So then why we as a member, CCEC, taking the whole day off, putting so much effort, doing with high integrity, making sure the process is clean, and then last minute we receive those type of ordinances. It's also insulting, one colleague who called me and said, there's no criticism on the process, just want to make sure the council as a whole have an opportunity. And there is an opportunity. There is no final approval. It's a preconditional approval. I heard again and again from my colleague, the council need to approve this. Council need to approve this. Yes, council is approving it. Without council, the person cannot get a paycheck. The council need to go up and down. And if CCEC is approving some person or sending, the council as a body can still go in a closed session and decide if that person is good or bad, and we can debate. But just saying whatever the CCC is doing, no, the council need to do. And if council need to do, then let's bring all the candidates to council. And let's have 20% do interview and listen to the whole candidates. How about that? We should do this then. Let's stop this whole stuff of CCC. Just being clear and say you don't trust CCEC, you don't trust the process. I worked really hard on this process. I just try in my good intention, no maliciousness, really good intention to make sure this CCEC or our council get a chief of staff in timely manner. We are already 19 months away. Whole presidency, I did not have chief of staff. There's so much thing Common Council as a whole can take advantage. We did not. And the last minute, we are seeing this last minute maneuver, or as one of my colleagues mentioned, Hail Mary. And it's just really disrespectful, feel like there's no trust among each other. And if that's what the council want, they want that. So there is a motion. Alder Bennett, I was going to ask for the vote. If you want to comment, please go ahead. Otherwise, I'm just going to wrap it up.
I really want to clarify that me, and honestly, I feel as though anyone that they should just
Bennett,
pass and go if they don't. I'm making a comment, and I'd like to finish my comment.
No, we cannot hear you. That's what I'm saying.
Can you hear me now? This is bullshit.
It's really
Wait, not
distracting.
Can you hear me?
We can hear
Okay.
you. Go ahead.
Okay. So, okay, good. Sorry, not on you, but what I'm saying is, I think that any alder that thinks that they should just pack up their bags and go should be on CCEC, because this is a recommending body. At the end of the day, we are a recommending body, so it makes sense for a chief of staff position to make a recommendation. I don't know why that should be any different for anything, and it's not a lack of trust. Every single thing in council comes to final approval for council. I don't understand why we would extend an offer to someone and just to get their hopes up, and then council is like, oh man, I don't know if we want to approve this person. Maybe that won't be the case. Hopefully it won't be the case. But I think for the purposes of this, we should be able, it just makes sense to hold off on that conditional offer.
All right. Thanks, Alder Bennett. Alder McKinney, go ahead.
I want to call for the question.
Thank you.
Vote, please.
Yep. So, Attorney Haas, could you please let us know what the motion is before we go on a vote?
Well, I believe the motion was simply for CCEC to not make an offer, if I understood Alder Bennett correctly. To not extend an offer until the council had voted on it.
Okay. So in other ways, CCEC will say, this is the person we think is a good fit. Send it to council. No background check, no precondition, and then council will debate on it. Correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay, perfect. That sounds good. All right, there's a call of question. Madeline, can you please do a roll call vote?
Absolutely. President Abbas?
No.
Vice President Martin?
Yes.
Alder Bennett?
Yes.
Alder Harrington McKinney?
No.
Alder Heck?
Aye.
Alder Lemmer?
No.
Alder Wahelier?
No.
Alder Carter?
Alder Carter is alternative. There are 7 members present right now.
My apologies. With 4 noes and 3 ayes, the noes have it. The motion does not pass.
All right. Thank you, Madeline. With that, if there's no further question, I will like to go quickly on the presentation from Attorney Haas. Alder Wahelier, go ahead.
Just to clarify, can I make the motion so that the CCAC can make recommendation for this? Is
Alder
that
Wahelier, no, you don't need to make a motion. That was
okay, it's already there.
Intent was that, but
okay.
The motion was not to do this. So
okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Attorney Haas, is it? If there's no further question, we will move to your agenda item. I'm not sure if 10 minutes are good enough time.
I think it would be plenty of time, but it also does not have to be done tonight. If you prefer to do it next week's meeting, it's
sure.
Up to you.
Yeah, I would suggest if it's okay with the body, Alder Carter, go ahead. I was going to say move all 3 agenda items to the.
That's what I was going to suggest, if that's okay.
Yeah, to the next meeting.
I move that item 3, 4, and 5 be moved to our next meeting.
Second.
So moved and second. Thank you very much. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Alder Lemmer or Vice President Martin. I don't know who did second, but thank you very much. We'll see you at 6:30. Thanks. Bye.